David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Kronosky. So glad to be with you live on FM, AM, podcast, and video stream. Our website, aneighborschoice.com, where you can go for all of our content. And that's where you'll go to for all of our online-only content, especially neighborschoice.com is our headquarters on the internet. And we're here for another exciting journey together, learning about the news together from a principled perspective. That's what you've come to expect. And that's what you will get on this program, as always, which means we don't have time for tribalism and DC nonsense. They're going to continue to try to inundate you with fear to get you to do exactly what you're told. They've always been telling you what to do. They've been telling you cigarettes were great for you. If you were back in the 1950s, they were telling you hydrogenated vegetable oils and all these different. Crisco was better than butter. And that was a lethally stupid and bad pseudoscience quackery that the establishment media told you to do. And they still tell you to do that in various degrees. To eat lots of vegetable oils to your detrimental health effects, and so that same media cartel, they told you always buy a house, it'll never crash in 2007, and of course it did. They told you weapons of mass destruction, it's a slam dunk. The president said, the CIA said, everybody said, go send your kids off to war. There's WMDs everywhere you look in Iraq. Of course, they were lying and stupidly wrong again. They told you we have to go into Libya. Libya's going to go blow up the whole world. Oh, my goodness. And that was another disaster hellhole they created. They continue to lie. The media does that on almost every single thing that you can imagine. They told you, we have to bail out all of our Wall Street banks or else the whole world will crumble. They're too big to fail. And so you did. And then they got more. And then they got more, and then they got more and more and more. More loot, more lies, more regulations, more bailouts. And meanwhile, everybody else in the real world suffers because of all this debt, because of all the regulation capture that has destroyed a lot of the vitality of our economy. But we still persist. We work that much harder. We work that much tougher. We work that much smarter, right? We get rid of debts. We stay out of debts. We take care of our bodies. We don't eat the toxic seed oil sludge, the canola oil, the soybean oil, the corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, all this mayonnaise, nasty stuff, nasty, disgusting stuff. But the media wants us to eat that garbage. They want us to eat that sludge. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know anything. They just mouth whatever the establishment, government, agencies say. You heard what Biden said. You do what they say because they're the experts. No, well, we got all the better experts. We have smarter, extremely intelligent experts. They're way smarter and more intellectually courageous and ethical than their garbage experts. But the difference is that the experts that the TV and the Biden administration push, they're following the party line. And as did you see that clip from the Mexico president, his recent speech where he said, let's make sure that Big Pharma doesn't get too dominant over our country, where they want us to have a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and a seventh dose and kids and all this stuff. He wants to protect the kids. That's the proper role of a government. Of course, our government's a little cheap compared to that. Our government's very, there is not a single difference in terms of their narrative and what the narratives of the establishment corporations want for any given issue. So, once again, Mexico continues to show more concern and consideration for their citizens by some of their actions and rhetoric than our own government. Remember, it was the president of Mexico who spoke out pretty early on that condemning the banning of Donald Trump off of the cartel social media platforms. Has Biden condemned that? No. I thought Biden and those guys are spreaders of democracy. You see? Mexico also is the country where they provided their early treatment options for people with COVID symptoms. Our government won't do that. I thought they care about helping people. No, they don't. Actually, Mexico City has a way better consideration for the actual well-being of people than this garbage corporate-owned Muppet media, protected administration in D.C. has. They don't care. They care about whatever's in the interest of the establishment. So one of the things that we have to do is just keep reporting on the facts as they come out and not allow groupthink mania to bend us one way or the other on what's true. And yet there's a continual desire to try to creep towards lockdowns. Can you believe that? Financial news, London.com says city bankers brace for lockdowns to return by year end. Just over 60% of UK-based market professionals in a poll see some form of daily life or economic restrictions still be in place by December. These people want to keep this lockdown thing going on in perpetuity for the rest of their lives. They don't care. It's too good for their corporate crony businesses. There's a lot of corporate crony businesses that love the consolidation of the market, and the government agencies love how docile and how compliant so many people are. They say, go home, and they go home. Even though when you go home, you have more likelihood of spreading it because you're going to get no vitamin D. You're going to be stuck in a house with people, and that's where a lot of the data showed that most of the transmission took place with people in home because they're stuck in the home all day, not getting sunshine. It doesn't spread that much outdoors. There's no evidence of that it spreads that much outdoors. And yet, they don't want people outdoors. They want you stuck in artificial air conditioning environment, and that's where most of the spreading takes place. And they don't want to talk about early treatments. They don't want to talk about all the literature, all the different scientific studies, randomized trials even that have been done for early treatments. That's not part of their official little communist style, one-size-fits-all medicine approach, which is garbage. That's never been the approach for any serious medical mind. And shame on any scientist or doctor who wants to use their voice publicly to sign on board with this kind of bully campaign that says there's only one approach to this and don't ever talk about that. They are discredited forever because you've signed up for party medicine. You've signed up for coercion-based medicine, and that's always the losing ticket in modern history. Because at the end of the day, we find out who the people are who are wanting to push lobotomy science. We find out who the people are who wanted to push one-size-fits-all science. The same people who wanted to tell everybody one-size-fits-all for this, one-size-fits-all for that. Those people are always the sellouts of scientific integrity because it's easy to do that. It's easy to do that when all the TV corporations, all your social media cartel, garbage companies, all those same government agencies that have been wrong on diabetes, wrong on heart disease, wrong on cancer, wrong on Parkinson's, wrong on Alzheimer. They've been wrong on every single thing that affects our human health for decades. But it's easy to go along with those same freaking, milquetoast losers that got it wrong completely for decades when it matters. It's easy to just go along with whatever the establishment says. But now in the information revolution of the internet, they've tried to clamp it down, but it can't work because the truth comes out. Once people understand you can get rid of seed oils and that solves a lot of these disease issues I just mentioned, chronic illnesses, and can solve pain issues and can solve severe cases of viral inflammation, you see. Once they see how there's a cascading effect to just doing dietary corrections, removing inflammatory amounts of sugar, removing inflammatory amounts of grains, reducing that, but most importantly, getting rid of seed oils completely out of your life and reducing your consumption of chicken fat and pork fat, because those are high in linoleic acid, which is the toxic amount of this is one of the key problems with seed oils. Okay, so once people realize that so many of the diseases that the TV's been telling them, just keep sitting around and taking your side effect, your symptom, reducing prescriptions, and they keep doing that over and over again. And at one point, people are going to say, wait a second, I saw my neighbor just got rid of X, Y, and Z out of his diet, and they're getting a health revolution. Wait a second, so I should just follow the TV and keep taking my 20,000 prescriptions for these chronic illnesses that are never solved by these prescriptions? Should I do what the TV and the public health experts say, or should I do what my intelligent, way more sophisticated neighbor's doing and get rid of X, Y, and Z, vegetable oils being X, Y being the processed grains, Z being the excess sugar? You get rid of those X, Y, and Z's, and my goodness, doing that plus getting sunshine and a good 8 hours of sleep every day, and that neighbor over there is doing way better than me, who's watching the CBS nightly news for my recommendations for chronic illness. You see, that's where the change is going to happen. It's going to be in the reality test. And that's what a lot of people are only just beginning to see. Because, wait until millions of people, let's hope it doesn't take too long. I don't think it will. Wait until the same amount of millions of people who do keto understand no seed oils. Wait till that happens, because that's going to be a breakthrough in a lot of health effects. And once that happens, people's minds are going to be open to say, wait a second, if they've been wrong on these fundamental problems that have been plaguing my life, they've been wrong on what to deal with pain, they've been wrong on what to deal with diabetes and obesity and all these different things, then what else are they wrong about? What else are these people with all their little DC protection wrong about? DC regulatory protection. And that's where the breakthroughs start to happen. And that's where you start to have a cascading effect of different other things. Wait, so if they are wrong about all of my chronic health issues, they were wrong about what causes heart disease. They said it was dietary animal fats. That was wrong as hell. And then they were wrong about, what causes diabetes. They were wrong about what to do for diabetes. They're wrong about what to do with arthritis. They're wrong about what to do with osteoporosis. They're wrong about what to do with Alzheimer's. They're just wrong. And once it piles up, then they say, okay, what else are they wrong about? And then when they look at energy and they say, wait a second, they said they're going to save the planet. What's their solution? All these versions of energy? Wait a second, what about these people doing nuclear fusion over here? They don't want to give attention to them? Oh, okay. So you're wrong about what's good for clean energy too. So they're wrong. So it's just a cascade of lies and myths that have to be obliterated before we can set the captives free to the next level. Millions of people are being set free right now. But, the forces of the 20th century, top down, you will do what we tell you. The lockdowns were utter disaster, scientifically the dumbest thing you could possibly do. Scientifically, no basis for what lockdowns helping people. But these disgusting, people who have no compassion for their neighbor, but they want to wrap themselves in care, are still going to try this gimmick again. And that's why they're already saying that the White House is already trying to plan a little gotcha for DeSantis, because for these people, they're so disgusting. All they care about is politics. And all they care about is DeSantis is one of the biggest political thorns in the side of the uniparty establishment out of D.C. and the New York media class and the California media class. And they like to dominate the control. And they don't like it that Florida has just totally destroyed their stupid top-down narrative all along. And so they're already talking about how can we get DeSantis. They're just shameful, just horrible, shameful, pathetic people. Because all they care about is how can we use a lockdown to try to hurt DeSantis politically. This is all these people care about, political stuff. And they don't care if it hurts children's childhood and so forth. They don't care. They could care less. They could care less. They don't care whatsoever. So you have to protect yourself. You have to protect yourself by not allowing them to have any more political power. These DC elitists, these uniparty establishment folks that run the Republican Party and the Democrat Party and the media, they have to be defeated intellectually, philosophically, electorally, and culturally. I'm David Granosky. We'll take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. Drop us a comment, as I see many of you doing right now on the live stream. We'll return in just a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended by full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
So the little busybodies on CNN and everything are trying to do their little messaging. Columbia University Medical Center doctor there says, I wouldn't say lockdowns are impossible. If we were able to get the vaccination rate for the roughly 100 million Americans eligible for vaccines up, then we'd have to worry about things like lockdowns much less. So they're trying to scapegoat people. Meanwhile, their own data keeps coming out showing that the people who are vaccinated are spreading it and they have higher viral loads than they expected. But how does that not factor into these? These people don't care about logic. They don't care about things making sense. They just love power. That's all it's about. And when will people learn that? When will they learn that it's all about power for these people? And it's one of those things that just, it never ceases to amaze me how much people buy into their little, overblown acts of, oh, look at us, we're so serious. No, you're not serious. People who have got the vaccine are spreading all over the place. They are spreading the heck out of this thing. And the only other argument they have left is that, well, if you have the vaccine, then you'll have a less severe case of this. But then some people are still going to the hospital who had the vaccine, and some people are still passing away who had the vaccine. So they don't really have any evidence to say why, to prove that. They don't have any evidence to prove. But that's what they're doing. Everybody has to get it. So it doesn't make any sense. Their own data says that the people who are vaccinated are still spreading this thing everywhere, all over the place. But they want to scapegoat the unvaccinated. How does that make any sense? How did the unvaccinated people cause the vaccinated people to spread it to each other and to the unvaccinated? And why aren't we listening to Nobel Prize winner virologists, top of the world, who are saying that the rolling out this kind of vaccine rollout in the middle of a pandemic is going to accelerate variants? Not just him. Dr. Geert Vanden Bosch says so as well, who's a top-of-the-line scientist. And many other scientists have said this. And even CNN has came out recently and had someone say maybe it's accelerating variants. But, that doesn't factor into their little scapegoating and demonization of people who don't want to take their decreed one-size-fits-all monopoly medicine. I'm telling you, people who don't understand how wrong this establishment has been for decades and decades and decades when it comes to your heart health, when it comes to I'm just taking the big chronic illness things, right? That affect so many Americans' lives, either themselves directly or someone they know. And we gave these stupid public health experts and these medical people, and I'm saying stupid in the sense that they're arrogant, okay? They're morally stupid. They may be, have credentials, but doesn't mean anything if your record is disastrous. And their establishment, war on heart disease, war on diabetes, war on cancer, these big things, right? War on obesity have been utter failures. The more government has had control and the more the media has pushed the government nonsense monopoly approach, you must do this for heart disease, you must do this for diabetes, you must do this for cancer. The more they've done that, it hasn't solved those problems. So people who've been looking at this issue for a long time are not surprised that they're bungling and making an absolute mess out of this latest disease. It's just part of what they do. They're monopoly, arrogant people who have a one-size-fits-all approach to every little thing they touch, and they make it utterly disastrous. They utterly fail. And the more that people pick up on this line of thought, that I'm one of the few people in broadcast that actually makes that connection to the broadcast mainstream media, the more people pick up on that line, that pattern, you're going to be able to see a breakthrough, hopefully, in people losing their faith in these discredited 20th century institutions. Outdated, stinky, stupid. Back in a moment.
Weekdays 9 to noon.
Joe Biden's catastrophic, corrupt, it's not even a mishandling of the border.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
And we're going to invite the cartels and the human traffickers and the child sex traffickers and the smugglers and the coyotes and the fentanyl traffickers and the heroin traffickers.
Chris Plant.
We're going to invite them into our country, and if you don't like it, you're a racist.
Chris Plant, weekdays 9 to noon, News Talk 1040, WHBO.
Louisiana joins places like San Francisco and other California counties in imposing mask mandates for indoors as a more dangerous COVID Delta variant puts more younger people in hospitals. In Colorado, Governor Jared Polis says while he won't impose a mandate,
hospitalizations are up, and I encourage people to take additional precautions. So if you're around others in a busy place, it's a good idea to wear a mask.
The White House, barred by a recent Supreme Court ruling from extending federal eviction protections, which have expired, is looking at options, says Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
The president has not given up the option of legal action. He has asked his team to look to kick the tires, just to keep the analogy going, and look at every authority, every option we have to keep more people in their homes.
Local governments are urged to set eviction bans. After being parked for 16 months because of the pandemic, San Francisco's iconic cable cars are rolling again and ringing their bells in the city's hills. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. If you'd like to call in with your comments, you're welcome to do so. If you want to drop a comment on our live stream, you can do that as well. Bruce on Facebook live stream. It's amazing people can find me on the Facebook live stream. Facebook did a lot, as much as they could, to make it hard for us to talk about ending wars and, giving a voice to people left behind in mass incarceration. That's the kind of stuff Mark Zuckerberg, he could spit on that. He couldn't care less. Mark Zuckerberg can't stand it to see voices left behind in mass incarceration, first-time nonviolent offenders, be given a platform to speak on my show. So they had to way early on make it very difficult for people to see our video stream on that platform. And YouTube's been very similar. But let's look at some of the comments. Bruce on Facebook says, be aware of the fascist nature of the military-industrial complex, the medical-industrial complex, and the media-industrial complex. Another says, greetings to all the neighbors. Another says they were wrong about World War II. That's what we found out, is that a lot of the convenient little textbook myths about all the wars, there's a lot of room for reality to break through to some of those myths. I like to think of all David's viewers as my neighbors. Well, thank you. I'm glad to know that there's a community there building despite the censorship. It's only going to get bigger and bigger, our audience, and it's not about bigger is better. It's just about having a network of different creative thinkers and artists and engineers and all the great folks that join us in these discussions. James says, when I added 8 ounces to 12 ounces of cheese to my diet, I lost 50 pounds in 6 months. My goodness. He said they lied about that too. Yeah, they did. They have demonized cheese, haven't they? It's ridiculous. I've never heard of that. People doing a cheese. What'd you do? Eat cheese all day? Just what'd you do? Eat 8 to 12 ounces of cheese a day? Or what do you mean, a week or what? Tell us more about your cheese revolution. And what kind of cheeses did you like? Did you like the fancy cheeses? Did you get some sheep cheese? Or did you get like string cheese? What a lovely thing to say. I only found his radio show, referring to A Neighbor's Choice, when the YouTube algorithm pointed me here after watching a James Dale Davidson video a few months back. Well, that's great. James Dale Davidson is a frequent guest on the radio show and roundtables that we do together. We did one recently with him and Dr. Chris Martinson and Joel Salatin, who's a great iconic farmer. And Luca says, morning to all. Another says, I found David through Michael Malice. It's a great show. Aaron says, the CDC's recommendations are beginning to feel like a game of red light, green light. Yes, that's the case. It does seem to be very arbitrary, but they love leading people around by the nose, you know? I mean, just go watch what happened with the Stanford prison experiment, right? When some students, these were all supposed to be, really intelligent students. But some of them were given the role of being in this experiment prison guards, and some of them were given the role of being prisoners, and the experiment went horribly awry when they realized that the people who were given the role of being prison guards became really ridiculously authoritarian, and they started abusing the prisoners, and the prisoners really took on the role of, it's okay to humiliate me because I'm a bad person, and I'm supposed to perform the role of being a, conquered person. And it created a nasty window into the reality of a lot of human beings, the vast majority, I would say, that when you give them the role to perform, they don't care if what they're doing is absolutely ridiculous. That's what you see. So yes, the Stanford prison experiment demonstrates what you see on CNN and all these people saying, you don't get your freedoms back. We're going to lock down. And if you don't do what we tell you to, you're going to be a bad person. They like to be mean. There's the same people that would relish the opportunity to do really horrible stuff in that Stanford prison experiment. That's the reality. That's all you're seeing there. When you hear them squawking about how you don't have a right to breathe without a mask, and your little kid has to have one, and your 2-month-old baby needs to be vaccinated next, they're just trying to bully you, and they're trying to use their air of authority because they're on the boob tube. So that appeals to low information people, that they're trying to say, I got power because I got the conch. This is like Lord of the Flies. I've got the conch, therefore I can speak. I got the TV boob tube, so I speak. I tell you what to do. You put mask on newborn baby. And you're like, what? Why? What's wrong with you? What happened to you? Who bullied you? What are you trying to replay with your trauma on TV and hurt people? Unfortunately, that's what's going on with this mania that disguises itself with the word science. They don't know anything about science. They don't know anything about science. These people are intellectually not on par with the arguments and the evidence and the science and that we explore on this program. They're not up to the par. They're not up to it. They just can't even come close. What they represent is bullying. And so these are the kind of people that if you did the Stanford prison experiment and you let those people be prison guards, you watch out what they're going to do. That's the kind of people that CNN and NBC and CBS and ABC and all these little people, they just get a little ounce of power and they like to bully and attack and tell you what to do. And you have to have the courage to stand up to these bullies and don't let their little, these people, in the grand scheme of things, these people don't mean anything to history. They're just another example. You think this is the first time that people have tried to use some kind of sacred aura of groupthink during a plague? That's all humans have ever done. These people think they're so neat and novel. Oh, what I'm doing is cutting edge. But no, you're not doing. You're just another, just another dime a dozen bully. They always pop out during a pandemic or a plague or a famine, whatever it is. Watch if there was a famine in America, God forbid. What would they do then? They'd tell you can't eat anything but seed oil sludge. You must eat seed oil sludge. They don't care. They'll just bully you. They'll tell you, you're going to go on lockdown unless you eat seed oil sludge. That's the same people. They would do that in a heartbeat. How many of these people that tell you you've got to have a mask on, you've got to have lockdowns, you've got to have your kid vaccinated at 2 days old, 2 months, they probably want to vaccinate the babies when they're in the womb still. They don't care. They'll do whatever. The herd, they go, moo! They moo like a herd, and they all act like a Borg. They just move in one unit, okay? These little bullies, okay? They just want to bully things that are not like the herd. And so what you have to realize is that these are the same people that if they were told, hey, now the enemy people are anybody who tells you that PUFA vegetable oils are bad for you. Like clockwork, these same stupid people would go, moo, and they would start saying, we need to ban anybody who says stop eating vegetable oils. And all they would need to make it like a thing is to have some kind of food crisis that enough people believe in, right? So they could do like a famine or something like that. And they say, you must report anybody who tells you to stop eating vegetable oils, because people who would do that are Russian agents, even though all Russian people are eating sunflower oil and stuff in Russia. But they don't care. Again, it doesn't mean anything to have logic for people who are herd mentality bullies. They don't do the logic stuff. Okay? That's why we laugh at any of their ideology stuff, because we should always laugh at an ideology that hates math. We should always laugh at an ideology that hates merit. We should always laugh at an ideology that hates showing up on time. We should always laugh at an ideology that likes to sow division amongst every person they can find. Laugh them out of town. And then when they're ready to stop being crazy, welcome them back. Welcome them back. We're not going to feed them seed oil. We're going to give them a steak and let them have a good time. But it's important for them to not feel like you are buying into their bullying, because they would do it for anything. I'm telling you, if there was a famine or some kind of narrative CNN cooked up, they would tell you in a heartbeat, you must attack anybody who tells you to stop eating vegetable oils. They are Russian robots. And these people are in such a stupor, they would believe it. They would believe it. Any second you tell them, the millions of stupid people would do this in a heartbeat. And I mean intellectually stupid, some of it, but mostly morally stupid. They don't have any ethical discernment. Someone just says on TV, if anybody tells you vegetable oils are bad, they have been sent to you by Russia, even though Russia subsidizes massive amounts of vegetable oil consumption to their own population. It doesn't matter. The logic stuff doesn't matter. They will just it's like an input formula. Tell me what to think plus coercion, and then tell me who's not doing it, who we need to apply coercion and bullying to. That's the formula. Anything they want. Anything they want, and that will work for the people who rely on these garbage state media outlets like the New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, blah, blah, blah. You just put in, it's like a formula. Think X plus use coercion on, Y, whoever is the person who is not complying to thinking X or doing X. And that formula works for anything they want to turn that on. It'll work for a lot of people. That's the reality, okay? That doesn't have to be permanent reality. You have to work with people to help and equip them to have the intellectual, baseline to not be so unself-aware. But that's how a lot of people are in. They're in a state of collective dreaming, And so if they hear, I'm telling you, all it takes, because think about it, they're trying to scare the life out of you, and with this thing forever. They're trying to milk this thing as much as they can with the variants, with lockdowns, even though the lockdowns did nothing but make things worse and more miserable. But if they wanted to selectively target your hysteria for your neighbors on heart disease, right? They could just tell you every year, every day, so many people died, 50 people died, 100 people died of heart disease. Or if it was cancer, 1,000 people in your county died of cancer in the last 30 days. This is an epidemic. They could do anything. And then they could tell you over and over and over again, the only thing that will save you is if you increase your consumption of vegetable oils. Millions of people would do this. This is the unfortunate reality, right? People will walk off of a cliff if that's what they think is the cool thing to do. That's the reality. This is nothing new. You're not in the end of the world. This is just welcome to the human species. Welcome to the human species. Okay, this is how it's always been. This is why, everybody tells you when you're a kid, watch out for peer pressure, don't do what everybody else is doing, and yet people still do. Right? This is why they say, watch out, make sure you find good friends in high school so you don't get pressured into being a, apathetic herd follower, and that's what everybody does. Welcome to the human nature, right? Right? And so you can either be aware of this and then be able to act as best you can, aware of your own ability to be drawn into these things, these hive mind mentality. Or, you're just totally unself-aware, and then whatever the TV tells you, you just put that through the little formula they do. But, these people are just, it's like talking to a brick wall. They think that they actually helped racial justice by electing a crook like Biden, who spent half a frickin' century bombing any country, particularly countries with people of color, into smithereens. They think they actually pat themselves on the back. This is insanity. So you think that they would stop for a second if someone said, hey, the new narrative is, David and all these guys talking about vegetable oils, it's really hurting the establishment on the big food stuff. This isn't what they would tell the low info dupes, but this is the big picture. David and those guys, their anti-vegetable oil information, just hurting a lot of our big food people. It's hurting a lot of everybody. We just can't handle that. We got to push our quackery nonsense harder. So let's start a campaign that if you are speaking ill of vegetables, it's because you're a Russian disinformation agent or you're a Belarusian person, or just just make up something that low info people will buy. They've been conditioned. It's like a stimulus. So they pick out a term that's scared. Russia. Oh, that stimulates. Oh, goodness. Attach that to agent. What's agent? That's scary. Agents are scary. Plus anti-vegetable oil. So, okay. So if Russian agent and anti-vegetable oil, same thing, go get them, right? Yes, go get them. That's what they're doing. Okay, they could do that. I'm already telling you the stories they can create once these things become a problem. Right now, it's not a big enough problem. People guzzle down their vegetable oils. They eat their mayonnaise slathered garbage. They don't know anything about what's going on with that, right? You do, because you listen to this show. I'm telling you the future news, right? This is the future news. Once it's become a critical mass thing, then they're going to start saying, watch out. Watch out. You must increase your vegetable oil consumption. Despite all the evidence, all the scientific data showing the massive inflammation it does, the massive oxidative damage it does, the massive effects that it does on your blood sugar and all these terrible things. They don't care. It's just about whatever it takes to push people into their little silos. Welcome to human nature. I'm David Gronowski. So great to be speaking with you live today. We'll be back in just a moment with more. Write a comment on our live stream. We'll be back and just look at it. Take a look.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski. So glad to be live with you. Hope you're doing well today. Let's look at some more comments that you guys have posted in. James says a diet about 2,100 calories, of which 900 to 1,200 from cheese, and the rest is low PUFA, that's the vegetable oils, was very effective for me. Well, very good. I've never heard that. That's an interesting thing. And anyway, the main thing is what you're keeping out of your diet, and I think if you're getting good quality cheeses, lots of vitamins there. Lots of vitamins if you're getting good, high quality cheeses. Dr. Pritchard says, and ye shall know truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 8:32. David, you are guided by the good book. When you help us see the full story, there is only one power which guides you to truth. And Joseph says, liquid fats will make your body less solid, more prone to injury. Look at pro sports, reoccurring injuries. It's true, and that reminds me of Dr. Kate Shanahan's great success she had with the LA Lakers, some of the big stars like Dwight Howard, who were struggling when she was brought onto the team, and she got them to do some creative things to get their PUFA, their vegetable oils, reduced, and their carbs too, but more importantly, the PUFA vegetable oils. And it really made a big impact in turning around Dwight Howard's performance. But these things have, disastrous consequences to us on so many different levels. And it's just a matter of time before millions of people are liberated from a lot of unnecessary pain and unnecessary chronic debilitating diseases once they catch on to what I've been talking about. And it's not just what I'm talking about. I bring on world-class scientists who are not part of some little gimmick, the new craze or anything. They're not people who are even usually getting media attention. I bring them on even though they don't have any media exposure and get into the deep science with them. You can find that on neighborschoice.com. We have, a host of topics that are applied to this issue. And it seems so redundant. You're like, okay, can you talk about something else? But it's such a basic thing. And when, we have a, loyal online audience, but we also have people coming and going who are just tuning in right now as we speak on radio. Perhaps it's our affiliate across Tampa Bay. We welcome you. And you don't know anything about this topic. And so we're trying to help you, everybody, be on the same up-to-speed place. Here's a quote from Henry Hazlitt that Anna Martin shared. It says, the envious are more likely to be mollified by seeing others deprived of some advantage than by gaining it for themselves. It is not what they lack that chiefly troubles them, but what others have. the envious are not satisfied with equality. They secretly yearn for superiority and revenge. And I think that's another word for the word equity that they keep using, right? That's the new buzzword. You can't just have equality. Equality is part of the establishment. Now you have to have equity, which means if 80% of the graduates in the engineering department are men right now and 20% are women, you need to get that switched to 80% female or non-binary and, 1% male, right? That's what equity means. It means not just equal. Revenge. You must balance out the scales of difference, and it's so stupid what it goes. It's just all about envy, which is what really drives us. Even the lockdown stuff, that's about envy. It's about, nope, we can't allow people in Florida to enjoy their freedoms and come up with their own. We have to control them. And if we must make them atone for our guilt, our decadent, rich, liberal, elitist guilt. They need to pay penance too for our own decadence. We got to pay penance for Obama having his lavish birthday parties and stuff, 500 people to celebrate his 60th birthday at his Martha Vineyard mansion, $12 million. That's what happens. $12 million. How much did he get out of all that loot for his bombing campaigns in Libya and Syria? Huh? How much of that loot did he get as being a good little team player and drone striking the hell out of 16-year-old U.S. citizens? Huh? Oh, I don't want to talk about that, do you, at the Martha's Vineyard party, do you? No, you don't want to hear about that, right? That's how you get a little $12 million Martha Vineyard and get to have 500 people at your party while your own party elitists tell everybody else they need to lock down and put their mask and shut up and all this stuff. It pays good to be a sellout, doesn't it, right? But in the long run, the whole world, it's not the long run, the short run, the whole world is, again, laughing at these DC elitists. They're laughing at the Obama-type politicians. They're laughing, the whole world laughs at these people. They are not the majority opinion. They are not. And as we've seen in Mexico and many other places, there are other countries that actually care about their citizens' health, that they'll speak out against, this idea that only 3 pharmacy companies have the solution for any disease that we have. That we're not, some people are actually intelligent enough and morally courageous enough around the world to challenge that narrative. And a lot of people don't want to speak out because the NIH controls the majority of the world's funding for this type of, grant research and different studies. They don't just have a monopoly over American funding. They control the world's funding, and they're very vicious and aggressive. They're not scientifically minded. If you cross them, make them look bad even one iota, they will blacklist you and your university for life for getting funding from them. Does that sound like a scientifically motivated, ethical group to you? No. Sounds like a group that's totally arrogant and insulated from competition, and therefore they don't know what they don't know, and all they know is power, power, power. And that's the problem with buying into state-managed anything. It's just a disaster if you understand human nature. And luckily, you've turned into this program so you understand human nature to some degree with me, and we're able to make sense of these patterns of stupid behavior. So we'll take a quick break and return for hour 2 with more news and commentary. You don't want to miss that. In the meantime, you can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. Or write a comment on our live stream or a question, and I'll get to it as we proceed. For now, Godspeed.
Your home home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson.
While we desperately want to be done with this pandemic, COVID-19 is clearly not done with us. And so our battle must last a little longer.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky at a briefing this past hour, even as the U.S. has finally hit President Biden's July 4th goal of 70% of legal adults getting at least one shot.
There's no requirement, but Mayor Bill de Blasio recommended everyone in New York City wear a mask inside.
We want to strongly recommend that people wear masks in indoor settings, even if you're vaccinated.
The city's health commissioner, Dr. Dave Choksi, said vaccines are best, but masks can reduce spread.
Even though I have been fully vaccinated, I will be wearing a mask in public indoor settings, in part because I'm the parent of a young child who is not yet eligible for vaccination.
The city is requiring proof of vaccination for all new hires in the public sector. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
President Biden pushing states to use their COVID relief money to make sure landlords don't put tenants out on the street now that federal protections expired.
The president's American Rescue Plan advisor, Gene Sperling, says there are billions available to help people stay in their homes. And the president's asking
why state and local governments are not getting funds out.
The Supreme Court said the CDC and president don't have the power to extend the eviction ban without congressional approval. And the House has already left for a month-long recess. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
Mandating in Illinois background checks for all gun sales and setting up a stolen gun database, among other things. A bill signed into law by Governor J.B. Pritzker.
No law can change the past or give back a life. Indeed, I wish we didn't live in a world where lives could be so thoughtlessly and easily stolen in the first place. But today, Illinois is putting policy into force that will save lives.
The Illinois governor there, you're listening to ABC News.
Oil drilling investments involve a high degree of risk and are only suitable for SEC-accredited investors. Attention, high-net-worth investors. Oil and gas investments have always been an ideal tax advantage and have been a way to invest and take a 100% write-off. The new administration is threatening to take this away. Take advantage now before it's too late. Invest in domestic oil drilling for a full tax credit this year. When you invest in oil, you get a 100% tax write-off. The pent-up demand from the pandemic has created the perfect storm for oil prices to soar. Support domestic U.S. oil and natural gas drilling and make your patriotic investment to get a complete 100% tax deduction write-off. If you are liquid for a $100,000 investment, call Encore Energy at 800-287-6691. That's 800-287-6691. 800-287-6691. That's 800-287-6691.
UK quarantine rules for fully vaccinated people arriving from the U.S. and most EU countries are now history.
The first passengers from the U.S. arriving in the U.K., the first time they've been able to move freely into the U.K. since the start of the pandemic.
We're very excited.
Tremendously excited, of course.
And we've been waiting for quite a long time.
Britain easing restrictions today on US tourists coming to the UK, hoping for more visitors for what's left of the summer season.
ABC's Julian McFarlane in London. Cynics about the Olympics have had this difficult moment about which to be cynical.
When the men's high jump competition was over, Qatar's Mutaz Essa Barshim and Italy's Gianmarco Tamberi had each cleared 2.37 meters. Both were given 3 more chances at 2.39, but neither could do it. In other words, a tie. The official asked whether they wanted to do a jump-off to decide who would win, but Barshim asked whether they could share the gold. The official nodded, and Tamberi jumped into Barshim's arms to celebrate. Both men will take home gold medals. Jim Ryan, ABC News at the Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
If it's clear where you are tonight, especially around midnight, you might be able to see a really cool sight. Both Saturn and Earth are on the same side of the sun, an annual phenomenon called opposition. NASA says that means Saturn's visible all night, reaching its highest point around midnight, and it's slanted in our direction, which allows a nice look at the planet's rings. This is ABC News.
The U.S. dollar is plummeting. Protect your savings against inflation with precious metals. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold Group is who I trust to help you protect your IRA or 401k with gold and silver. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, get a free information kit by texting the word PROTECT to 989898. Again, text PROTECT to 989898 today.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live again for hour 2 of our broadcast. We're coming to you on multiple platforms, as well as our website, aneighborschoice.com, brought to you by our friends around the world who continue to make direct contributions to our show so that we can reach more and more people with explosive, exciting information that affects things like your health, your nutrition, even things like physics and energy. We get into all kinds of topics guided by the personhood principles of Jesus, inaugurated over 2,000 years ago in history. And now we're joined by a friend of the program who joins us with a new project she's got going on, Angela Stanton King. How you doing, Angela?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show once again.
Yeah, it's great hearing from you again. And you've got a new book out that's called Caught in the Coup, which is all about your experience in the Trump presidency and what was going on during that time, right?
That is so true. It's just an awesome story about, what was going on behind the scenes. I had already written 4 books prior. I'm a national best-selling author. I just, been paying attention to what had been happening in the news lately, and I thought that it was important to just document what really went on, some of the things that really went on behind the scenes before they try to cover up everything and continue to push these lies.
What are some of the biggest myths that you can dispel and that you do dispel in this book about the Trump presidency that you were just mentioning?
Well, one of the biggest is that the president is a racist. President Donald J. Trump is not a racist. And I'm speaking as not only a black Trump supporter, but someone that was able to work with his administration and bring forth initiatives that really benefited the black community. I was there to give witness to him not only making an effort to change things for the black community, but coming up with the $500 billion platinum plan, permanently funding our historical black colleges, the opportunity zones. I was fortunate enough to work directly with him and his administration in passing the First Step Act. On one day, we got over 3,100 prisoners released and reunited with their families, and the majority of them are black. So I just talk about, the fake news, the fake media, how the Democrats have lied to us, and the lies that they've told on this president. And not only that, this big cover-up they have. For some reason, they don't want us talking about the election fraud. I also ran for John Lewis's seat in Fulton County, the county that had the alleged water main break. They don't want us talking about that. And they don't want us talking about the sexualization of our children that's coming down through Joe Biden's White House.
Yeah, there's a lot of topics there. Let's start with that. You mentioned criminal justice reform with the First Step Act. What's your take? Trump, during the pandemic he was dealing with, he put out a deal where he was allowing people to go on home confinement so they could avoid a lethal experience with the pandemic in the prison system, especially if they were nonviolent and not doing anything violent. Now the Biden administration has said they're not going to allow people to stay on home confinement. As soon as this pandemic subsides, they're going to send those people that Trump put on home confinement back into the bowels of federal prison. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't know if anyone that has studied history or know who Joe Biden is, I don't think anyone should be surprised. This is the guy that wrote the 94 crime bill that led to the mass incarceration of Black Americans. So, and he hasn't done anything or made any criminal justice reform efforts whatsoever. So personally, it seems like everything that they were saying, Trump is this, Trump is that, they were really talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden has no interest whatsoever in helping the Black community unless you identify as gay or trans.
Right. Let's talk about also the topic you mentioned, Fulton County, Georgia. That's been in the news again, where the Secretary of State, he used to say there was not a problem that he could ever possibly imagine. Now he's singing another song. What can you tell us as someone who you just mentioned your race for Congress was in that includes that area? Tell us a little bit about what was going on in there.
It was so hard. For one, I'm from Atlanta. I've been in Atlanta my entire life. My opponent, who was a Democrat, who was written in, basically selected, not elected. She's not from Atlanta. No one had ever heard from her. My campaign was completely silent. The media was completely biased, refusing to give us any type of interviews. If they did come out and give us any type of interviews, then, of course, they wrote it in a biased manner. My opponent also refused to debate. She turned down more than 8 debates. She wouldn't even address the public with what her plans were as the next congressman for Fulton County or for the 5th District of Atlanta. Outside of the media bias, social media, of course, shadow banned my account, would not let me promote or advertise any of my campaigns. And that day that we were sitting there and we were waiting for the count to come down, and they said that they had the alleged water main break in Fulton County in the only room that held the ballots. I also watched this video came out with, people pulling suitcases of ballots out from under the table. I witnessed Republicans being locked out of counting centers. I mean, all of this stuff is insane. I'd never seen anything like this before. And the shocker to me, and I know that, Atlanta has been Democrat for over 100 years, but the shocker to me was that my opponent somehow managed to get more votes than John Lewis ever got in the history of his entire career without any promoting and refusing to debate. So I talk about that extensively in Caught in the Coup. There's something fishy going on here. I've never been one to be shy about my word. I've always felt like COVID was a cover-up for something much, much bigger. And if you would ask me what that was, I would say that it's the election fraud and human trafficking.
Let's talk about the second part of that statement, the human trafficking. What's your book research shown you about that topic in this?
Well, we all know that President Trump was very, very big on securing our border, and there's a reason for that, because of so many humans being trafficked across this border. I also found it odd that they were forcing these mask mandates on what was first saying that, this COVID didn't impact children didn't get it, and how they forced these children to wear masks. And it just so happened that I was in Miami, and this was all over the news. And I'm in Miami at an adult entertainment club, and I see children with masks on at 12 o'clock at night being paraded across the stage. Now, I'm saying to myself, what would be the perfect way to conceal the identity of a child that's being trafficked in the United States or across the border? By forcing them to wear a mask when no one could see their face. Now, a lot of people say conspiracy theory is this, conspiracy theory that. I'm just thinking, I'm using my own mind, I'm forming my own opinions, and something is definitely weird. And I'm praying to God that all evil be exposed before it's too late.
That's the thing that I continue to see. It seems like this government has a lot of callous disregard for children, to say the least. And, we see this now with the new calls for masks for children, and they want to vaccinate kids. they're going to keep moving it younger and younger. I was just mentioning I wouldn't be surprised they're going to want to vaccinate babies while they're still in the womb if they could. You know what I mean? They'll do whatever it takes. Baby can't even cough to give people COVID, but they'll still want to vaccinate them if they could in the womb. Why do you think there's such a disregard for children and their human dignity in this government?
Well, we know that our children have always been the least protected. They can't protect themselves. They can't protect themselves against violence. They can't protect themselves against laws. They can't protect themselves against adults. I mean, adults, they're the weakest link. Not only, vaccinating children, forcing the children to wear masks, but also forcing gender identity on these children and confusing them. And just like Joe Biden's, pick for the assistant, administrator of health, I mean, specifically said that they're going to make it where children can transition without the consent of their parents, banning conversion therapy. I mean, just taking away our right to teach our children a normal way of life. I think that, America has to wake up. We have to stop being divided, right, by people telling us that we hate each other, by people telling us that we can't live together. This whole movement when it comes to children, and I spoke about this in my book as well, where Joe Biden had an entire section on his website dedicated to LGBTQ children and protecting their rights. And I had to break it down for a minute. And I said, okay, LGBTQ children, what does that mean? And when I thought about each one of the letters and I wrote them out, I said, okay, the L, that's lesbian. That's a woman who's sexually attracted to women. The B, that's bisexual. That's a person that's sexually attracted to men and women. So all of these things are sexual preferences or desires. So when you start taking sex and you start mixing it with children, we know that that's pedophilia. And we have to wake up and be very, very careful about what we're seeing coming down the pipeline and how they are sexually perverting America's children. Why can't the children remain innocent, and why can't we speak up about it, and why do parents not have a right to say, I don't want my child confused?
Right. Yep. There's an attack on innocence that I think is at the heart and soul of this globalist ideology. They just don't respect boundaries. That's the big problem. They hate boundaries. They hate moral law that says no to something, right? They don't like that. That's the oldest rebellion in the history of mankind, that mankind does not like being told what to do. They don't like being told you can't do that. And so there's an attack on morality that's at the heart of the soul of this ideology that's reigning in our culture today. Are you optimistic about the long term of where we're headed here?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm doing a lot of praying. It doesn't look good to me. It doesn't look good. I'm more concerned for America's children. If we are raising children now with the idea that, they can swap bodies, they're born in the wrong bodies, they're the wrong gender, that, anything can happen, what's going to happen in another 10 or 15 years when these children are now adults and in charge and making all of the rules? I'm afraid because it seems like common sense is of yesterday. It doesn't exist anymore. And I just don't know where we're headed. And it's just very scary to think about, children as young as 3, 4, and 5 years old, even with the whole thing about sexually transitioning. I mean, if you were transitioning a child or if you were giving a child hormone blockers, then you're also sterilizing that child. I mean, and all of this is an attack on life. It seems to me that even with abortion in certain targeted communities, that all of this is a part of some type of depopulation agenda. I mean, if you ask me, if we're globally funding abortion, which kills a baby after the life has been created, if we are pushing an agenda to teach our children that they can change from one sex to another before they even go through puberty, then that tells me that this is most certainly an attack on life.
Yeah.
And when we start playing God, we better be careful.
I think the majority of the world laughs at this globalist ideology, though. You know what I mean? You look at the majority of India, you look at the majority of China. I don't think they agree with their attack on children's gender and stuff. So I think the vast majority of the world's population agrees with us on these basic things, but we're divided because we're supposed to fight each other for the war machine and all that.
That is so true.
Well,
so I would just say, keep your eyes open, everybody. Keep praying. We've all read the book. We all know the story. They say the good guys win. So let's just keep our hopes up and hope that this thing is going to turn around. But doesn't look good.
Well, Angela Stanton King, it's always great having you on, and I just want to. I hope that we can turn the page, because usually when you're on, you're a lot more optimistic, but I understand we're in a tough fight right now, and it takes all hands on deck. So I want people to check out your book, Caught in the Coup, which is available online now, right?
Yep, you guys, it's available online. You guys can find out everything you need to know about Angela Stanton King at Angela Stanton EPK, which is short for Electronic Press Kit, AngelaStantonEPK.com. Thanks, Dave.
Thank
and
you.
The whole team over at the radio station. Anytime you guys need me on, I'm just a call away.
Thank you. Thanks again. And we'll continue live on A Neighbor's Choice after this short break. Stay with us, folks.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski here live with you 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040 if you'd like to call in. And we'll continue looking at your comments. One says on the live stream, for the purpose of getting and maintaining healthy mitochondria, that's your energy batteries, little batteries in your cells, I have become convinced that reducing linoleic acid is more important than totally eliminating sugar and carbs. I agree. I agree with that. And many people are agreeing with you all over the world. We recently had an interview with Dr. Ray Peat, who is more of a pro-sugar guy, right? But he doesn't like, grains and certain carbs, but he likes, fruit and things like that. But he's also very much against the seed oils. You got to get off the seed oils completely. That's not just like something you reduce for a little bit or whatever. Just get it out of your life completely, these vegetable oils, as much as you possibly can. I know it will make some of your restaurant situations a little more challenging, but it's navigatable. You can make it, and it's important. It's worth doing. It's worth the effort to do this for so many reasons. There's so many benefits to it. And so the EpicTimes.com has a story that the CDC says 397 children suffered heart inflammation after COVID-19 vaccine. This is by Ivan Pinchikov. Nearly 400 people between the ages of 12 and 17 were diagnosed with heart inflammation after receiving the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, according to a study published by the Centers for Disease Control on July 30th. So I think this is an absolute outrage. This is completely morally unethical, right? 12 to 17-year-old kids are not having severe cases of COVID typically, especially if they're not with severe other diseases already going on. They're not having bad experiences with this. So there was no reason to be putting kids in that kind of study anyways. So now they've got heart inflammation, which can have long-term buildup in terms of being a long-term problem that can be very, very bad for people. They didn't need to put 12 to 17-year-old kids in this. And now they've got this problem. They're sacrificed by medical hysteria, whipped up by profiteers. And it's completely unethical. Completely unethical. I'm disgusted to read reports like this. That children are not the ones that need to be worried about this, especially if they're not in a massive, massive disease state because of eating all the toxic seed oil foods that the government tells them are good for them. They would, kids are in a better spot on average. And yet, here we have kids getting this. 397 suffered heart inflammation. The heart is your essential vital organ. You don't have a second one lying around anytime, it's not, and why are they doing this to kids? It's ridiculous. It's just an outrage. As a commenter says, that's more than the amount of children who died with COVID. Heart inflammation is a death sentence. It's just an outrage. Why are we not allowed to have a conversation in defense of children? We're not supposed, they want to just control people like lab rats. And we should be speaking out against this. Do not let these people bully you. Fight for kids. Fight for the kids. You don't let kids get bullied. Meanwhile, they're minting 9 new billionaires because of this pharma stuff that your government is doing. Thomas Massey has a tweet where he says, I don't trust anyone who denies the existence of robust, durable, natural immunity conveyed by a prior SARS-CoV-2 infection. They are too scientifically illiterate or too ethically compromised to give reliable advice about COVID vaccines. This includes the CDC and Dr. Fauci. I totally agree with Congressman Massey because he actually is an ethical and intelligent scientist in his own right. He doesn't trust anyone who denies the existence of robust, durable, natural immunity conveyed by a prior SARS-CoV-2 infection. They're either too scientifically illiterate or too ethically compromised to give reliable advice about COVID vaccines. That includes the CDC and Dr. Fauci. Amen to that comment. Emory University just showed it gives natural robust immunity when you get the disease. Meanwhile, they're giving heart inflammation to 12 to 17-year-old kids, and they want to roll it down to babies. Where are the adults to defend children's dignity? We'll be back in just a moment.
Find the best coverage of Florida sports all in one place.
SportsTalkFlorida.com covers all the Florida teams you know and love with in-depth interviews, original coverage, and insight on the team that makes the news in Florida.
Whether it's the Bucks, Lightning, Rays, Jags, Dolphins, Marlins,
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered.
or any of our college teams like the Knowles, Gators, Bulls, Canes, or Knights, you can find it all at SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered. SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards is reinstating an indoor mask mandate as his state deals with its fourth surge of COVID-19.
We're the worst in the country in terms of this COVID surge, and that is because of the Delta variant, which is a game changer, and the fact that, quite frankly, not enough people have been vaccinated here in Louisiana.
Officials in San Francisco and 6 other California Bay Area counties are also bringing back indoor mask requirements. Senator Lindsey Graham has tested positive. The South Carolina Republican is the first senator to announce a breakthrough infection after being vaccinated. President Biden says he can't extend a moratorium on eviction, but the White House says plenty of others can.
The president wants to do everything within his power. We are still investigating what that legal authority is, whether there is any options that we can have on eviction moratoriums.
Economist Gene Sperling, the Biden administration's COVID rescue plan.
Neighbor's Choice returns. We're live on FM, AM, podcast, and video stream. And you can call in to the program at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. RT has a story. Mask-free Sweden nears 0 daily COVID deaths as chief epidemiologist warns against far-reaching conclusions about the Delta strain. This is as the CDC urges Americans to mask up against the Delta variant. Sweden's chief epidemiologist has argued that more data is needed about the strain's infectiousness. His mask-free nation is hovering at 0 COVID deaths per day. Anders Tegnell said on Friday that there was a lot we do not know about Delta and cautioned against drawing far-reaching conclusions about the coronavirus strain. He noted that the variant has been circulating in Sweden for quite some time with little effect, particularly in high-risk settings such as nursing homes. His comments were made in response to newly released data from the CDC suggesting the Delta strain is more transmissible and could potentially cause more severe illness. The New York Times and other media outlets ran stories reporting that the CDC now believes the Delta variant is as contagious as chickenpox, but this comparison didn't seem to impress Tegnell. He says, it is difficult to say how contagious Delta is as when it comes to chickenpox. We have been able to follow the disease for several years. The infectivity of Delta seems to be very uneven. In some cases, one person infects 100 people. Then we have other occasions when an infected person does not infect anyone at all, he told Sweden's newspaper. In separate remarks, he pointed to the fact that 1/3 of the country's municipalities reported 0 new COVID cases over the past week. At the same time, there was an uptick in cases among young people in Stockholm and other large cities. And while U.S. health authorities are pressing Americans in high transmission areas to mask up, Sweden dropped its last remaining mask recommendation related to public transport on July 1st. While Sweden's public health agency has supported measures such as social distancing and remote working, it has no recommendations for the use of face coverings in public spaces. Reviled by the media for refusing to impose harsh lockdowns, Sweden's less draconian approach to the health crisis appears to be paying off. The Scandinavian nation has recorded a total of 8 COVID-linked deaths so far this month, an average of 0.25 deaths per day. While it's possible This number will increase due to reporting lags. Deaths have undoubtedly plummeted over the past several months. On June 4th, Sweden reported 13 deaths, more than the entire month of July. Daily hospitalizations have also hovered near zero in July. On most days of the month, the country saw between 0 to 2 COVID cases requiring hospital treatment. At the same time, daily cases have fallen sharply since April. Despite the promising developments, Tegnell warned against getting too comfortable. He stressed on Friday that Sweden was still in a pandemic and urged especially those in younger age groups to get vaccinated. But you can see that Sweden continues to be a thorn in the side of their one-size-fits-all, heavy-handed approach. Continues to just blow up their little narratives, their little myths. Here's a comment I saw Tom Woods, the historian, tweeted out. He said it's from somebody that says, the left lockdown loonies do this thing where COVID deaths in liberal areas are tragic atrocities needing to be avenged, and COVID deaths in conservative areas are to be mocked or celebrated as materializations of the vengeance being sought. So I thought about this. This is what primitive religion is all about. Primitive religion is exactly what you see in this description of what's going on in the COVID political narrative, is that the left sees the COVID deaths in liberal areas as tragic atrocities that need to be avenged. That this is an example of primitive religious thinking that's going back thousands of years. And it's not just thousands of years ago, it's even in contemporary times. We mentioned my interview that's on our website with Monica Paulus, in which if there's a death in the tribe, she was accused, and many other people, men, women, children, were accused of falsely of being witches and causing the death of the child or the death of the person. And so that mirrors this mechanism that this person's describing, that if there's COVID deaths in liberal areas, the tragic atrocities need to be avenged. It's like some kind of, there needs to be some kind of atonement. And COVID deaths in conservative areas are to be mocked or celebrated as materializations of the vengeance being sought. It's as if they have this belief that if you don't obey us, then you deserve to die miserable deaths from this disease that we are scared you're, spreading into our communities. That's the kind of mindset they have, which is exactly the same mimetic, sacrificial, scapegoating mania that Monica Paulus mentions being a victim of in Papua New Guinea. And that's why there's nothing to do with science. This has everything to do with anthropology. This has everything to do with what human beings have tended to do when they feel scared, as they revert back to accusation, blind, snowballing accusations into one camp, which either becomes a tribal tit for tat between two tribes, or if there's not enough support institutionally for the accused, then it becomes all against one. But of course, folks in the conservative America, independent thinking America, and so forth, they represent the majority of the population, so they can't get away with scapegoating completely. But all the people who are dominating media tend to have the same worldview, that if people are dying, it's because of conservatives not obeying their political prescriptions. That's their superstitious belief, and they believe it with all fervor. They don't care that their own politicians like Cuomo were sending people into COVID people into nursing homes. They don't care. All that matters is if you don't do what we tell you to do, you deserve to die. And anybody who dies, it's because they didn't obey us. That's what they believe. But if you didn't obey the government about heart disease, for example, then you'd do a lot better off. If you took the opposite information about what the public health authorities tell you to do to avoid heart disease, then your heart wouldn't be as diseased. You see? So the record of these public health experts sings another reality. It reveals another reality, okay? And that's a newsflash. You see, the little groupthink TV party people, they don't know how to handle people like our arguments, because we're taking the actual data from a variety of different diseases and we're showing you that the public health experts have been dead wrong on everything that counts and everything that matters. And so we have every reason to be skeptical when they tell you there's only one approach that you must take. You must obey. And then the thing that they tell you to take, they're still spreading the disease, the people that take the drug. Well, you still need to obey. And anybody who doesn't obey, they're causing the people who obeyed who are still spreading it to everybody. They're like, what are you talking about, you superstitious Luddites? These fools, completely intellectually outmatched. That's what they are. Intellectually out of ammo, intellectually bankrupt. They've got nothing but fear-mongering and bullying, but it doesn't intimidate us. History is on our side because we stand for science. We stand for actual intelligence. We stand for ethics. We stand for actually having a debate. We stand for actually understanding what makes for a good immune system. And we're not going to let them lie reality out of existence. They want us to believe that the only way you can get herd immunity is through their products that have legal immunity, right? Meanwhile, Emory and all the science shows that natural infection gives you a big, broad spectrum defense that seems to be very robust. Meanwhile, their own information shows that some of their antibodies are waning after 6 months of them getting their products. And meanwhile, you have countries like Israel, where they have this huge, massive, near universal Pfizer vaccine campaign, and you get 40% of people getting this disease are already vaccinated. And who knows what the numbers are in other countries. I mean, I've got other people that come on this show, like Dr. Alexander, who show the statistics as an evidence-based medicine scientist. So let's just be skeptical when they tell you there's a monopoly information. You listen to these same people. Let me tell you something. Once you know how stupidly wrong they are about almost every frickin' thing that has to do with your health, it's not very hard to believe that they're full of it now, okay? And we already know they're wrong on lockdowns. They tried to demonize anybody who was concerned about this virus back when it was happening. Back when, all the mainstream media kept saying, no, there's nothing to see here. They were trying to demonize anybody talking about the Wuhan lab. They were always lying and demonizing. That's all they've ever done. They've been wrong on every aspect of this thing since the beginning. But once you realize how utterly wrong, because you say, okay, well, maybe I should just trust them about what is the best way to deal with this disease, just this one. But then once you realize, wait a second, okay, and also, what should I do with heart disease? And then you're gonna hear them tell you, eat lots of seed oil sludge, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower, eat all these seed oil sludge. You're like, wait a second, it physically is destroying heart health. It literally does that to your body. And once you see these stupid people are all the same ones telling you that trust us, you just can't unsee that, right? How can you, if they're going to get your heart health wrong, they've had decades. It's not just a pandemic, they've had decades to try to get it right. And they've got it wrong. Every year you listen to them, you're going to get sick with your heart. Your heart's going to get sick eating that toxic seed oil sludge. You see what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to show you, is that once you see the pattern of incompetence and idiocy masquerading as, authority, we are the state, we are God, ooga, ooga, ooga. They try to act like they're a God. We, by the power of Ra, tell you what to do. And you say, no, you're not. You're stupid. You don't know nothing. You're intellectually bankrupt. You're embarrassing, and you're gnats. You're gnats in history. You're not a big deal, okay? And it seems like a big deal, I know, because all these blabbering, garbage, parrot media outlets make it seem bigger than it is. But as you see around the world, Sweden and Mexico and many countries, they don't take this groupthink line as, sacrosanct as I guess folks in the West, some of these Western countries do. And that's a good thing to know. Let's go back to that story about their hero, Obama. He's having a great time. Daily Mail reports Obama's maskless ball Ex-president risks super spreader event by inviting 500 people to his 60th birthday at $12 million Martha Vineyard mansion. Pearl Jam will perform, and guests, including Spielberg, will be served by 200 staff. It will be held next weekend outside of his 7,000 square foot mansion in Edgerton. He and Michelle bought for nearly $12 million in 2019. All guests will have to be COVID tested and vaccinated. Yeah, but the vaccinated ones are spreading it just by their own CDC standards with high amounts of viral load, they said. So that's what you got. If you go along with bailing out banks, if you go along with giving, cronies like Solyndra, scam artists, your money or other people's money by force, if you will go along with bloody Arab Spring chaos, regime change chaos, if you incite violence all over the world and then not take any responsibility, if you do all that, then you too can have a Martha's Vineyard mansion if you're a good, faithful servant to the establishment. That's what that represents to me. This is a guy who did nothing to lift a finger to help people like Angela Stanton King when they were incarcerated for nonviolent crimes, people like many of the folks, Craig Cecil, who we've had on this show, who's now free because of President Trump. People who like John Bolin, who's now free because of President Trump. Obama didn't do anything. Obama did nothing for criminal justice reform. He just threw away the key, didn't care. You had people like, Alice Marie Johnson, a grandmother who had to, did less than what he has admitted to in his own books with cocaine and stuff like that. But he got to be president, and he could have got down there and lifted a finger and signed to have her have clemency as a grandmother who did less than he admitted to in his own book, but he wouldn't do it. Couldn't do it because he had to make sure he couldn't get that kind of a mansion. You see, he can't get those kind of book deals. Can't get that kind of Netflix special if he's rocking the boat of the establishment. You see, if he's just doing what his conscience tells him. No, he didn't want to buck the DOJ. He didn't want to do anything to upset the establishment of D.C. So he just gave pretty speeches, bombed kids all over the world, locked up families all over this country, gave pretty speeches, got his book deal, got his Netflix deal. That's the way the system is supposed to work. Okay? That's how it's supposed to work. That's the machine in action. You get somebody who is a good rhetorician who sells you on why you should keep the status quo. And they get a piece that gets to enrich them personally, and they get all the little Hollywood adoration from other fellow sellouts and so forth and so on, and that's their little bubble. But it's not going to last into the 21st century. Hollywood is less relevant than ever before. Their ratings are irrelevant. Their TV shows are irrelevant. Their comedy shows are irrelevant. They're not funny. They're not entertaining. And so this is all just, the last grasp of the 20th century era model of media that's all just, high-fiving each other out of irrelevancy. They're just not relevant. And they've got a lot of money, though, from the past, and that they can live off of, but it's not relevant. Speaking of that story in Mexico City, I wanted to go back to that. The story in RT says, Mexico won't be hostage to Big Pharma, president says, as internet predicts trouble after country rejects COVID jabs for kids. Social media users have theorized that President Andres Manuel López Obrador could face severe repercussions after he refused to purchase COVID vaccines for children, vowing that Mexico wouldn't bow to pressure from drug firms. In remarks made earlier this week, the Mexican leader said his government was still waiting for the scientific community to demonstrate the benefits of vaccinating minors. Until conclusive evidence was provided, Mexico would refuse to purchase jabs for children, Obrador announced, adding that pharmaceutical firms seem to be focused more on making profits than on ensuring medical necessity, as they raked in record sales from COVID-19 vaccines. Mexico will not be held hostage by pharmaceutical companies that only want to do business and scare children with the idea that it is necessary to vaccinate against COVID-19. He was similarly critical of plans by drug companies to introduce third or even fourth dose booster shots, opining that the jabs could be superfluous. Speaking on the same topic, Undersecretary for Health claimed that there was no scientific evidence showing the jab was essential for minors, given the high rate of inoculation among the adult population. Mexico City's second oldest daily reported. Mexico has approved a range of COVID vaccines for emergency use, including shots developed by Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Sinovac, as well as Russia's Sputnik V. The country's health ministry recently revealed that a minimum 48% of Mexicans have received at least one vaccine dose. Like many other countries, Mexico rolled out its inoculation program in phases, giving high-risk groups first priority. Currently, those under 18 are not included in the vaccine drive. See, that to me is an ethical way to deal with this. But that's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough for these people. It's all or nothing. They want you obey, and it's one size fits all for the whole world. These power-drunk, intellectually bankrupt, discredited fringe people that Western media continue to blast into your eardrums. Let's take a break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. Stay with us.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Or write a comment on our live stream, and we will address it if we can during the show. I want to look at some more stories here as we continue navigating these interesting headlines. JustTheNews.com reports that Senator Lindsey Graham says he has breakthrough COVID. He tested positive after having been vaccinated. So if people can test positive after they've been vaccinated and they're hanging out together with vaccinated people, then they scapegoat the unvaccinated every time they test positive. That's just stupid, anti-science hate, and they need to stop doing their little hate mongering, but that's what they do. He said in tweets, I feel like I have a sinus infection, and at present time I have mild symptoms. I will be quarantining for 10 days. He says, I'm very glad I was vaccinated because without vaccination, I am certain I would not feel as well as I do now. My symptoms would be far worse. As according to Dr. Paul, Alexander, former HHS scientist, WHO scientist, there's no evidence for that claim. But, Lindsey Graham is an establishment player, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to toe the uniparty established line. You ask Lindsey Graham what the deal is about heart disease. He doesn't know anything about seed oils. Ask Lindsey Graham, what's the deal about cancer? How come you guys have had a war on cancer and you can't get anything done and make it worse? Do you know anything, Lindsey Graham, about the breakthrough paradigms in cancer treatment that I've had on this show? Do you know anything about one of the most cited Google scholars, dead or alive, Dr. Michael Lasanti, who I've had on this show? He's been published in Nature and many other places showing that cancer can be dealt with and cancer metastasis can be dealt with using FDA-approved antibiotics. He doesn't know anything about that. See, these guys that are part of the uniparty establishment, don't go to them to look for any, useful, credible information. They're just there to just give you the, mixed science. It's mixed science. It says it's to science what a McDonald's meal is to your health. Okay? It's, that's what they do. It's a mixed science. A manufactured, low resolution, not informed, low hanging fruit, low resolution, low info, waste of time. That's what you get with Lindsey Graham's and Nancy Pelosi's. Now, if you want to figure out how to bomb a country that's going against your special interest needs, Lindsey Graham and Nancy Pelosi, they're experts on that. They are experts on using working class people, either their bodies, their money, to figure out a new way to bomb some poor country around the world who's not complying with the special interests. They are geniuses at starting that. They don't know how to act. They make a mess. They don't know how to actually deliver on their little regime change, little dreams, but they know how to just make a mess of everything around the world. They are genius experts on that. If you want to be bailed out as a giant corporation or get a massive corporate subsidy to keep, putting seed oil sludge into people using taxpayer dollars to make it subsidized, Lindsey Graham, Nancy Pelosi, they are expert geniuses on that. They'll take care of you all day long. They are geniuses on that kind of stuff. If you want to figure out how to come up with a new campaign to mass incarcerate nonviolent people, Nancy Pelosi, Lindsey Graham, they will take care of you all day. But do not ask them about what causes heart disease. Don't ask them how to deal with cancer. Don't ask them how to stay out of debt. Don't ask them how to educate your kids. They don't know anything about the stuff that actually matters. Don't ask them about low temperature nuclear energy. They don't know anything about that. They don't know anything that's about the future. Okay? They are yesterday's news on every single level of their mouth opening, except for the one thing they know how to do is make a holy hell mess out of the whole globe for special interests. That's what their expert genius is about. So if you want to do that, you go ask Lindsey Graham and Nancy Pelosi any question you have in that regard. They are going to be your experts for that. There's another story here on Just the News. Dakota Governor Noem responds to criticism. She backs job vaccination mandate, says banned passports. So she is getting criticism for not coming out against banning private businesses from doing vaccine passports. I think that the criticism of her is correct here, because when you have government being so involved with this whole thing, I think it crosses a line that we should have people who are individuals who are protected from mandates, both from the private sector and public decree. So I think that that's an example of a total mistake on her part to not go ahead and prevent mandates from private or public sector. So that's an example of where I think, there needs to be more clarity on that position that people need to understand. So one of the things that we have to remember, folks, is that we have to think for ourselves if we want to make it through any time. History has shown that. So now's the time to learn about history. Now's the time to learn about anthropology. Now's the time to learn about the examples of what humans do in times of crises. Now's the time to learn the ethics of Jesus, how to think critically like he did, how to challenge sacred cows like he did, how to avoid the false dialectic of this team versus that team. That's a waste of time. All those things are the things that we can be doing when we have spare time to learn, to grow in wisdom, and to encourage one another There are so many things to be positive about. I'm excited to know that millions of people in the future generations will be free from diseases that current generations have had to deal with because of the knowledge explosion that we get to be a part of together. Isn't that exciting? Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Granosky. Godspeed.